In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Madam President, I would like to congratulate Guyana, the newly elected member of the Security Council, for its presidency this month. We acknowledge France for successful completion of its presidency in January. I would also like to extend my congratulations to the other elected members, Algeria, Sierra Leone, Republic of Korea, and Slovenia. We appreciate Russia's request for convening this meeting under the agenda item threat to international peace and security, which addresses persistent violation of international law and the UN Charter by the United States in the region. We welcome the presence of Ms. DiCarlo, Under Secretary General, in this meeting. Madam President, Iran strongly condemns the U.S. military attacks on Syria and Iraq territory. The U.S. military action is illegal and unjustified and blatantly violate the basic norms and principles of international law and the United Nations Charter, particularly paragraph 4 of Article 2 of the Charter. It is also a flagrant breach of Iraq and Syria territorial integrity, sovereignty, and political independence. Iran also strongly condemns the joint military action of the United States and the United Kingdom against Yemen, which constitute an obvious violation of the United Nations Charters and international law. Furthermore, they have openly abused Security Council Resolution 2722. These illegal actions, which targeted civilians and vital infrastructure, jeopardize regional peace and security, as well as pose a serious threat to international peace and security. The US and UK must bear their international responsibility for their commission of the crime of aggression. The argument of justification invoking Article 51 as a basis for this aggression lacks a solid legal foundation and cannot legitimize these illegal actions. Madam President, today in this chamber, the US and UK made another desperate attempt to distract attention away from the root cause of the current situation in the region by falsely putting the finger and blame on Iran. It is regretful that the United States, a permanent member of the Security Council, has failed to fulfill its obligation under the UN Charter. The US expressed grave concern about the spillover of tension in the region while continuing to play a destabilizing role in the region. The United States continues to occupy Syrian territory, loot Syrian property and resources, and support separatist and terrorist groups. Furthermore, people in Syria are experiencing economic hardship and humanitarian crisis as a result of the United States' hostile and harmful actions, as well as the application of illegal sanctions. All these measures violate international law, the UN Charter, and related Security Council resolutions. The Syrian Arab Republic has officially and frequently raised objections to those violations, calling on the Security Council to halt these violations and put an end to the US occupation. In Iraq, following the unlawful military intervention in 2003, the US and the so-called coalition ignored Iraq's opinion and aspiration and continued illegal activities and presence under the guise of fighting terrorism. The United States and NATO must respect the Iraqi government's decision to terminate their military presence and withdraw their forces from the country. Madam President, all of the resistance groups in the region are independent, and their decisions and actions are motivated by their legitimate rights under international law that are ending the illegal presence of US in their territories, stopping the genocide in Gaza, and ending the occupation of Palestinian territories. Therefore, any attempt to attribute these actions to Iran or its armed forces is misleading, baseless, and unacceptable. Iran never seeks to contribute to the spillover in the region. Iran has no military presence in Iraq, nor does it have bases or military advisors. In Syria, Iranian military advisors are legally present since they were invited officially by the Syrian governments to fight terrorism. Claims that Iran's bases in Iraq and Syria were attacked are rejected as unfounded and regarded as attempts to shift attention away from the US aggressive actions. Iran has never sought to bring its dispute with the United States into Iraq territory and remains committed to Iraq's independence, national sovereignty, and territorial integrity, and this is the principal position of Islamic Republic of Iran. Madam President, it is evident to everyone that the root causes of the current situation in the region are occupation, aggression, and continued genocide and horrific atrocities committed by the Israeli regime and fully supported by the US against innocent Palestinians in Gaza Strip and West Bank. The US military attack against the Muslim nations of the region are the continuation of a complicity of this country in the genocide of the Palestinians through all-out support of the occupying regime and preventing any effective international action to hold the regime accountable. While more than 4 months have passed since the occupying regime's genocidal attacks on the oppressed people of Palestine, the US has not only actively cooperated with the Israeli regime in the genocide of the Palestinians, but it's now attempting to divert the international community's attention away from the genocide of the Palestinians through a spillover and escalation of tension in other parts of the region. We believe that the only solution to end the conflict in the region and prevent the spillover of the war is to return all to their obligation under international law. That is, to force Israel to stop genocide in Gaza, to establish an immediate ceasefire to end the presence of US forces in Iraq and Syria, and to exert pressure to end the occupation of Palestinian territory by the Israeli regime. Instead of blaming others and simply urging restraint from other members, the US must force the Israeli regime to halt the genocide in Gaza and comply with its obligation under international humanitarian law. Likewise, the US must end its obstruction of the UN Security Council to allow the adoption of the draft resolution proposed by Algeria, focusing on the ceasefire in Gaza. This approach aligns with the broader goal of restoring peace and stability in the region while addressing the humanitarian concerns at hand. Finally, Madam President, I would like to reiterate that if Iran faces any threat, attack, or aggression affecting its security, national interest, or people, it will not hesitate to exercise its inherent rights under international law and the UN Charter to respond firmly. Thank you.